When using the pec fly or rear delt machine, there's a few options we want to look for. So because it's a dual machine, when we have our settings set up here and the handles are here, this is going to be more for our rear delt, which is the back of our shoulder. It's a fairly small muscle, so it doesn't have to be loaded extremely heavy. It's more about maintaining an adequate amount of movement and a rib cage position. We want to also look down here to change our weight stack setting. And then to make sure our shoulders are in alignment with our movement, we want to set our seat setting up appropriately. So I'll set mine here today for my height, not too high. And I will show you the rear delt first. So what I said about the rib cage is we want to make sure that we don't have a giant rib flare, as we call it, when we set ourselves down, as we're going to be pushing our chest into here. I've chose the appropriate weight for myself, and I find my shoulder to be slightly above or in line with this handle here. I don't want my ribs flared, I want to be leaned forward. Pushing my pad in, making sure my feet are established into the floor, and I pull apart. I don't want to touch the weight stack down like that, because now I've taken the tension off the muscle fiber, and I'd rather just take it through a full range of motion. Grabbing this handle setting is perfectly fine, as is this. If I wish to work my pecs, we can go through and adjust this setting. This is rear delt number 1. And we can adjust this setting to the ranges that we feel a shoulder can go through. Again, if we have fairly challenged in the shoulder mobility, the ability to stretch our pecs and get our shoulder through an adequate range of motion, we may have to start on what's the number 6. And that asks very little for me to find a shoulder position that I can't just start at. When we're pushing, we push ourselves back into the pad. We make sure we don't have a high rib flare. We're pushing back into the pad. We begin with a bent elbow, and then we begin to straighten at this point, just so we can get max recruitment through the chest and fly together. This handle setting is perfectly fine. I'm personally going to opt for this one. And squeeze together, straightening the elbow as I come to the top, bending without touching it down. For me, I feel I have more range of motion in my shoulder. I'm going to bring it to a setting of 3, and now you can see it's going to ask a lot more through that range. But that will also recruit a higher stretch throughout the pec. How I will enter it at this point is I'll actually pull it forward as I take a seat to take the stress off the shoulder to begin. Make sure I don't have too much of a rib flare. I squeeze, and you can see a larger range of motion through the pec here, a larger stretch, making sure I'm straightening at the top to get a full contraction. Bringing it together is perfectly fine, but not necessary. In this motion, we're getting most loaded in the stretch position at this point. Squeeze into full contraction and choose weight that challenges you appropriately. As I set it down, that was for the pec. This will be for the rear delt and our back.